really sort of getting that full 360 degree view of your farm. And I think that's where we've sort of been focusing.
G'day and welcome to the Farms Advice podcast with your host, Jack Creswell. Whether you farm it, service it, or just love it, this podcast is for you. We'll bring you the techniques and technologies you can implement into your day straight from the leaders and innovators themselves. Spread the Farms Advice so that we can reach more farmers right across Australia. Follow us on all of your socials at Farms Advice, and let's get into this episode. Good morning, farmers, from wherever you're listening to this episode. This is August Agtech month, and we kick it off with the very first episode with Hamish Munro from Pairtree Intelligence. We wanted to highlight what types of Agtech are out there working for the farmers in different areas of the farm and or the office, so that you can get a little bit more out of your daily routine, get some time and all money back in your pocket. So let's get into this first episode with Hamish Munro. Well, Hamish, welcome to the Farms Advice podcast. Great to have you here and great to be watching on your journey the whole way through. So welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. And looking forward to the chat today.
Absolutely. Now, I think a few listeners will be keen to have a look inside of like what you've been doing, how you set yourself up, and actually what Pairtree is. But before we get into that, tell us a bit about your background, your connection, and how you ended in this role of being the founder.
Yeah, cool. Quick version really is fifth generation farmer from central New South Wales. So we had a family property based at Cumnock, sort of right in the middle of Orange and Dubbo. And I went away to school and then came back, did a year in the Territory, worked consolidated pastoral company, Vern Station up Timber Creek in the Territory. Came back, did a Bachelor in Management and rum drinking at Orange Ag for a number of years, and then came home. And so started 2000, finished Ag College in 99, and that was probably where my Agtech journey started, really, because the EU market was just kicking off, and so we had a laptop in the cattle yards in 99, utilising the EID tags or the NLIS tags, but in the cattle's ear, and just working through that. So that was good. And through that, we were trading about 1,000 steers a year. I was also sort of doing 3,000 acres of cropping, mostly wheat and canola, and then one of Dad's brothers was sort of looking after the sheep enterprise, which was self-replacing merinos, as well as sort of crossbred lambs and that off that. So we had sort of 13,000 odd ewes on the property as well.
Beautiful. Let's go back to the NT. We're actually using any ag tech whatsoever up there back in the early days?
Yeah. No, that was in 96. So that was basically the end of the Wild West. There was no OH&S. Cattle were pretty wild, plenty of horns, and all of that. So the breeding, was really becoming a piece to breed out the horned and get more polies.
Yep.
And then there, particularly with the breeding and controlling of bulls and things like that, it was still quite difficult at that stage. So they're quietening their stock down. Actually went back to the same station only 3 years later, and they'd spent a massive amount of time putting laneways in and sort of going from the traditional just sort of 3 helicopters bulging cattle into the yards to sort of more sort of a quieter approach of helicopters into laneways, and then utes and bikes sort of just tailing them back into the yards and that. So yeah, there was a huge change in that sort of late 90s, early 90s.
What things did you bring back from the NT that you could use in Central West New South Wales? Was there anything that sort of related?
Yeah, look, particularly, because the cattle were, reasonably, sort of, I don't know, wild, but, untamed, that just the animal management and just sort of tailing stock out, quietening them down and that sort of thing. But particularly just reading the stock as well, sort of how to see them if they were going to break out, and how to, traditionally what they call the ring the cattle and sort of keep them either moving forward or sort of slow them down by using their natural sort of movements that they have along the fence, sort of thing. So yeah, that was really interesting. Just really learning that stockmanship piece of the of livestock.
Yeah, and so vastly different to what, and also how big their mobs are up there.
Mm.
Plenty of people coming out of Orange Ag as well. That'd be
Yep.
probably a good thing to kick off in those networks. Because I've talked to so many people out there, and turns out they came from Orange Ag and they're doing some pretty good things from there.
Yep.
But how have you landed into Pairtree? Talk to me about the journey going into Pairtree Intelligence and what actually started it for you.
Yeah, so unfortunately or fortunately, succession planning or unplanning was really why I've landed here with Dad and his two brothers. Unfortunately, couldn't sort of keep the business together and sort of move it into more of a sort of a corporate type structure, and so I'd make the decision to move off farm. I worked for a small chemical company for a number of years, from 2012 to 2015. But prior to that, I was also a councillor on Cattle Council, New South Wales Cattle Committee, and did a heap of stuff on NFF as well. So both the chemical company and the experience and sort of working for the beef industry really formulated, sort of that there's more to ag. There's more that's needed for ag into the future with the integrity and the compliance that I could see that market access and that would require for the industry, and I had started a tech company in 2012 when I finished up on the farm as well. Firstly, looking at governance and because of my experiences through the representative industry and policy and that for the industry, I saw that governance was something that was really important, but meeting structures and all that wasn't as good as it could have been, and I thought I could digitize that. So that was my first failure as a founder. So I ticked that box, thinking that I could design something that people would adopt. And so then, because I had sort of developer talent and access to that sort of New South Wales DPI asked us to help them in Orange connect to different research stations that were about 30 k's apart, one in Molo and one in Orange, and we did that, and we started doing the visualization, and then Pairtree. That was really where Pairtree started.
Beautiful. And was it like a few moments on your own, like on the family farm before you split from there, that you actually wanted to pull some data together, or it was from the research from Molong and Orange stations that you were that was the initiation?
Yeah, no, it was, sort of, as I said, we had sort of a full gross margin of every animal that we were trading in 99, going through, utilising the EID tags and things like that. But it was then, we had massive spreadsheets of what our cropping rotations were, what our fertilisers were, both pasture and both cropping, liming programs, and then also sort of, animal treatments and all of those sort of things. So I could just see that, I knew that there was apps sort of coming through that would solve this issue, but just juggling that was where we were, and then GPS coming in and all these other bits and pieces for variable rate, that opportunities that we're sort of here and now sort of usual daily sort of activities.
Beautiful. So Pairtree Intelligence is the name. What is it in around 60 seconds or so? Can you give us a sort of download of what it is, who it's for?
Yeah, so Pairtree, we've got about 130 different integrations. So what that means is different agtech suppliers. So what we enable is firstly for our farmers to have flexibility and choice to connect whatever they choose for their budget and for their farming operation to connect into other services. Now, we basically help agronomists or agribusinesses or consultants really provide services to farmers, so farmers can connect in their livestock management or their farm management software, as well as their soil probes or their weather stations, as well as sort of other data feeds to help an agronomist make a decision about what should happen to that crop. Because there's not one app out there that does absolutely everything. That's where we come in and allow different things to sit next to each other, complement each other, but the agronomist to not be prescriptive about, you have to have this thing and that thing, because we've got 16 different weather stations that can be connected and things like that.
They're beautiful. And like full disclosure, we're actually using it on our farm, and the dashboards for us probably started off quite simply, and then looking to build them out with our ag tech and what we're doing on our own farm. So you've got farmers and consultants utilizing it. How does it sort of differ for the two, or is it it's speaking to each other as you go along with the seasons?
Yeah, so like Pairtree Plus, which is what you've got, is, we see that as a contextual piece. So it's got SprayMate, which you use reasonably regularly to plan your spraying. But then it's also got livestock and crop market sort of there, as well as some basic satellite imagery, 100-year weather forecast and that. But the way we want it is then you can connect, Sevo Labs or OptiWay, or, sort of your AgriWeb, or, sort of any of the weather stations, soil probes, tank monitors, FarmBot stuff, whatever, to connect all that together. But we see then that data can then be shared with permission, and I wouldn't mind to talk to you about the NFF's farm data code, later on, but with permission to drive, share some of that data so that the farmer doesn't have to double enter that to that agronomy service, or to, we work with Syngenta, largest crop protection company in the world, about, some disease modelling and things like that. So that's where the farmers can actually, start opting their data into services rather than having to manually and double enter the stuff time and time again.
Yeah, music to our ears as a farmer as well, but also probably a lot out there, because that could be the hump of really having to put their information, their data back into a separate app for that. Now,
100%.
building out a startup ag tech, being in your unique position of having those over 130 partners, what's it been like sort of setting this up? You're very different to others because you want to talk to every other ag tech out there. How has that sort of been for you as an ag tech startup?
Yeah, so, because of my background, I sort of knew that, everything had to collaborate. So we've taken the position of complementing, not competing with any of the ag tech companies. So every time I integrate an ag tech company, I want to add value to the ag tech, but also the farmer. So the farmer's invested $1 into that, expecting, like a weather station's an interesting one. Everyone buys a weather station to find out how much rain they've had or how hot and cold it is. But, humidity is one of the key metrics that is caught by, a weather station. Now, for Pairtree, if we can grab humidity and give it to a disease model, or give it to a fire risk model, or give it to evapotranspiration for an irrigation, or, sort of looking at, a whole range of other pieces that, humidity, spray, sort of for delta T and spraying and all of that. So, that's where we want to take the metrics from the devices that farmers have and put them into new services that consultants or agronomists or people that are far smarter than me can build, sort of apps and tech over the top of those devices, and apps that collect the data on farm.
Yeah, the applications sort of tend to go on and on. It's just whatever the sort of user wants to build them out as well. But from what you've seen, what sort of data are farmers collecting? What are those low-hanging fruits? Are they just looking to pair their weather station to going out spraying, or like the livestock indicators as the dashboard that we're using most frequently? What are you seeing from your side, or what are the questions raised and everything?
Yeah, because I've got a background in livestock. The one that I see that is most interesting at the moment is really there's a real sweet spot somewhere between, and these are guys that you've spoken to on your podcast before, sort of OptiWay with your pasture from Sevo Labs, with weather stations, with then AgriWeb, or, sort of a mobile, or, sort of the livestock management software platforms as well. So really sort of getting that full 360 degree view of your farm. And I think that's where we're sort of been focusing. But similarly, we're doing GRDC, and Grain Innovate is an investor through the Artesian guys with us as well. And we're just doing some frost and heat stress modelling with CSIRO. And again, with that coupled with the sort of the disease stuff that we're doing with Syngenta, there's some really big opportunities within the grains and the oilseeds to look at how frost and heat stress coupled with disease can sort of constrain production really.
Good stuff. And you dropped in before about the NFF farm code. It's been launched this week. Talk to us about that and how important it is to have that data secure.
Yeah, so that's, I've sat on that committee for the last 18 months with two hats as a farmer and also as a tech provider. And, the ultimate goal for me was really just to allow farmers to have the transparency of, what is going to happen with their data and to make sure that they particularly benefit from their data, because I see in the future, Pairtree's positioned ourselves to make sure that we're totally transparent and value to the farmers' data. So we want to make sure that farmers can benefit more, and benefit doesn't really have to come through particularly a dollar value, because the temperature mightn't be a very much of a sort of a real material value to the farmer or whoever would buy that metric as such. But if you can provide just 2 or 3 metrics from a weather station to a disease model, and that can tell you not to spray or to spray a week or 2 earlier, and there's $10,000 worth of chemical that you've saved, or half a ton a hectare of grain that you've gained, like that's a material value that sort of the farmers can benefit from, but they need to understand and see what that data, how that's going to be used. So that's what it's all about, is just creating that transparency layer and making sure that farmers benefit from any data that they share.
Yeah, well, out of that, both parties should be learning, if not saving their time, saving some money down the track, and actually seeing how that can work for them. I've seen a fair few people worried about it though, and it's great. Like this, it's the committee. It's NFF is a committee, is it? Oh, National Farmers.
The committee of the farms. Yeah.
And what's the future of data, the projects and everything that you've worked on with MLA? How does that sort of prove this, or what are your workings around it?
Yeah, so back in 2018, MLA through their AGM had the Red Meat Digital Forum 2018 at Carwoola near Queanbeyan. So that was really our first test case into the industry. So our focus at that stage was really about data centralization. So there was 5 farms, 5 different connectivities. So satellite, 2 lots of LoRaWAN, Sigfox, which is sort of like farm scale Wi-Fi type things, and cellular. So there was 15 different providers, 25 different device types, 280 devices spread across those 5 farms. And we had about 6 weeks to pull it all together. So we did that. And that was really, that first step that MLA had really supported to, blue sky, what is the value of data, and can Agtech talk to each other. So we sort of certainly proved that. And then we've spent the last couple of years working on and off with MLA to get to a point of data convergence. And so data convergence, which is really about aligning the data that comes from all of this Agtech to fit with an integrity program or an emissions program, or compliance programs for market access and things like that. And so as we started off in the conversation, when I was on Cattle Council, I could see that that was how we needed to utilise on-farm data to minimise that double handling. And we're basically now at the start line. Pairtree's been leading this. We've proved that we can pull data from key providers to fill out something like the LPA sort of compliance platform sort of thing, or the greenhouse accounting framework for sheep and beef that Professor Richard Eckhart has done. We did a couple of projects with MLA to prove that. So now we've done that just as a one-on-one farmer type approach. But yeah, we're sort of keen to now roll that out into more farmers and scale, and sort of work through the different nuances that are required to do that, so farmers don't have to double into data, but can be recognised for their emissions, or recognised for how they raise their cattle, or how they sort of what they do or don't spray on their crops to get access into the EU market and things like that.
Yeah, that compliance piece is really sort of growing for the different sort of buzzwords and the trends of where agriculture is going, especially for the carbon markets. Have you had the introduction into that, and how data plays a key role in, like, if we're not measuring as farmers, we can't actually come up with that project, or we can't show evidence of what we're doing on farm is actually improving for that? And how's that working with Pairtree currently?
Yeah, so we're talking to a few of the key carbon guys at the moment, because it's like the interesting thing is why did the carbon change? And so, we can measure soil moisture. Well, the farmer's measuring soil moisture and soil temperature. SEMA Labs or satellite imagery is doing biomass and all of that sort of stuff through farm management software or livestock management software. There's the stock are in the paddocks, or the crops are in the paddocks, and then this, that, or the other has changed. So I see that particularly long term, that the activities are going to be the key things that are going to help sort of measure where the fundamental baseline has been created for these carbon projects, because you can't test enough soil to in a project to sort of be completely compliant, and the integration and pulling in more data, because rainfall has such a huge effect on the retention or loss of carbon, and just those through weather stations and all of that sort of all key to really painting that picture to help probably hedge the farmer and protect the farmer if it does go into a drought. But the activities that they've done have been maintained and can be proven through connecting to different apps and different data sources.
Absolutely. And like from the farmers end, I think it's pretty exciting from the farmers to actually have this information, whether we want to work with it or not, out in the paddock or in the office, looking for these sort of projects, even going down sustainability sort of loans and getting those improvements on the farm. We're all looking to be more profitable and sustainable as we go. But you mentioned ChatGPT and any ramifications this may have for farmers. For anyone out there that has already sort of dabbled in it, had a look at it, it's sort of gone quiet in the media now. What does this mean, ChatGPT for farmers?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. ChatGPT works as a large language model, so it's out there scrolling the world for information about anything that people ask it questions about. Now, the beauty of agriculture is that every farmer treats their land differently, and everyone's got different successional issues or different budgets or age and sort of academic sort of situation. So just looking at a satellite imagery over the top, you can't actually know exactly what's happening on that land, or what particular chemical has been sprayed, what group type, or how many tons of fertilizer has actually been applied, and whether they're mining that country or not. So getting to ChatGPT under perfect conditions could grow the best crop in the world, in 5 or 10 years' time, maybe. But ChatGPT has to, or will have to, sort of be driven by the farmers, and knowing what historic activities have been done. And so, Pairtree's at the forefront of enabling this by, sort of creating that conduit if there was, I think it's Farmer's Edge in the US has Norm at the moment, but which is their version of ChatGPT for farms. But you still don't know what chemicals, what rotations need to be there, what varieties, sort of what fertilizer, whether, we've got clients that have got lateral irrigators and they've got sandy blocks. So, from a satellite, it doesn't look like a lot of crop grew there, but they ran out of water one year and they actually turned their lateral off for a fair section. So that the yield from an NDVI is actually, being affected by the farmer because he didn't actually water a large section of one of the fields. So there's all of these little things that, if you follow ChatGPT in its most holistic approach, then, it won't be as good as being able to supply information and then having, an agronomist double check it to make sure that that's, sort of the most appropriate sort of recommendation for that paddock.
Yeah, so ChatGPT, what I've seen, not to reference TikTok or anything, but it's only as good as what the prompts are that you're putting in to it as well, which is probably plays out for a lot of other things. But if you're a really good prompter and you know what to sort of type out in text and get those answers, you can sort of dial down to improve it each time, every time, rather than just leaving it with the first instance that you get.
Yeah, and funnily enough, just talking to some guys last week, probably actually at the Agtech Awards, and they were laughing that there's actually new jobs now that query experts, and so they're just sort of young guys just or girls that can just ask lots of good questions.
Yes.
So that's now a job. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, there's plenty of jobs coming up like that, especially with this new information and technology. It's pretty exciting though, but also from the farmer's end, being a bit on the warier side can play a pretty important role as well to be more profitable in the end. But talk to me about barriers and challenges and what you're seeing in ag tech, what you've seen from your first sort of instance over the years for farmers.
Yeah. Look, I think one of the barriers, which I think is an opportunity long term, is that at the moment, venture capital is fueling all of us to create more apps, more services, more sensors, and all of that sort of stuff. So farmers at the moment are sort of just really getting overwhelmed, and there's too much coming at them, and how do I juggle it on, and all of that sort of stuff. And it's like we've seen a couple of collapses of a couple of very large US companies in the last few months, particularly in ag, that just got too big, too top heavy. They started off, they had a good client offering, but they keep on adding more and more stuff, and then suddenly they're irrelevant to basically everyone because they're not doing enough for the broader audience, right? And they're doing too much for their original sort of clients. And I think that's where Pairtree and others that sort of start to come into this integration space is that allows ag tech companies to be laser focused just on whatever their lane is, and really be the expert and keep on drilling inwards rather than keep on expanding outwards, which sort of and so farmers then can pick and choose and have flexibility of things that really fit I keep on coming back to their budget or their operation, like there'll be lower end budget type things, and then, if they work and you get benefit out of it, you can move up to a higher end budget type thing in that same sort of vertical as such. So I think that's where long term, I think there'll be less less expectation for everyone to be everything to everyone and be that silver bullet. It's going to be that you'll just need to have a suite of things that sort of capture the key data sets that you need to manage your farm, or to tick off on your compliance or your ESG or your stewardship, or you just want to go to Bali and hang out and just look at everything remotely from your phone.
Yeah, so sort of getting the ag techs sort of playing in their own paddocks and going vertically integrated to dive a bit deeper into what they do and what they know.
Yeah, and I think that's like it's interesting. The disease modelling stuff we're doing with Syngenta at the moment. So there's some weather station providers at the moment that feel that they've now just got to add a disease model on top of their offering now. Who knows where they get that from? Do they have to pay a license fee for that? It's totally within their opportunity to, sort of service their farmers from it. But, is it the best one? Is it going to be the most reliable? Who knows? There's plenty of companies that could come and just be an absolute expert in, sort of blight in apples or something like that. And so then apple growers can just go to that particular disease modelling tool, hook in whatever their weather stations are, and then know that they're 100% on that sort of disease risk and how to control it.
So the placement of Pairtree, you're sort of sitting in between these tools to integrate their data to sort of overlay them together on a dashboard. Is that the case, and is that how people are using it?
Yeah, so part of the NFF data code, we act as probably a bit of an intermediary. There's 16 different things that come out of a weather station. So if a disease model only needed humidity and temperature and leaf wetness or something like that, we could just give those three basic things to the disease model and keep the other, sort of 13 things behind. And then similar to the farm management software, if they needed to know crop type, sowing date and things like that, there's 100 different things that are probably in a farm management software, and again, we just give three. So, out of 116 things, Pairtree sort of is able to be that gatekeeper and just say, do you want to switch on this disease model? It will have these 6 things of 116, and the farmer can just easily say yes or no. They don't have to try and tick off things or whatever. Like, we're just trying to make that really easy.
Yeah, exactly. And talking about going in depth into ag techs and everything, let's go into depth to Pairtree. We've talked about the ag tech space and what's happening, ChatGPT, etc. Who's Pairtree Intelligence? Who's it suited to currently? How are you growing that out, and what's your user base?
Yeah, so we're really focused on our white labels and helping sort of large agricultural corporates, sort of in the crop or the cattle sheep space at the moment. Like, they're the ones that have got lots of apps on lots of different properties across Australia, and so we've got 2 or 3 of the key guys at the moment we're working with and sort of pulling together consolidated reports. So this sort of really fits for large family farms as well, with a number of couple of properties. But similarly, we're working with we've worked with Auctions Plus before to do some market insight type stuff as well. So we like to do some of that contextual off-farm stuff to bring and make it enabled to be added on to the farmers that have it. So that's where we're sort of really focused. But, we're really enjoying the work that we're doing with Syngenta at the moment as well, in what the opportunities are of just being that conduit, helping farmers get hyperlocal disease data for their farm, by sort of allowing them to control that data connection through to that multinational, but expert in the space.
Yep. And I've said this a few times now, on farms, for the different roles that people play, and if they're sort of distinguishing those a bit more these days, especially for family corporates moving into those larger structures. Who are you actually been dealing with? And like, I call it the Agtech officer for myself or in our farm. Who is that, and who's the most common sort of person that you're dealing with looking to onboard this Agtech?
Yeah, so at the moment, there's a bit of a mix, sort of the operations officer, manager sort of thing, or that. It's we like to keep a bit of a presence so that, if one of the farm managers can see how to do it better, and, particularly as a large cropping company that, one of their farm managers was just a super tech type of guy and just loves sort of playing around with that. So, he's probably nearly their go-to, even though there's probably other people that are sort of that should be looking at this stuff. He's the one that's, probably the, dare I say it, the bullshit the sniffer sort of thing. You can just see straight away whether it's going to add value or it's just, bullshit and it's not going to fly or help the business beyond, just the first instant.
And run us through Pairtree. How do people use it? What's an example of a dashboard of you sort of going through, just to it is a podcast and we can't actually see visual unless you're looking on YouTube. So how are people actually using it? How do the dashboards sort of outlay for it? What's the UX, I suppose?
Yeah. Yeah, so for Pairtree Plus, which is just for what you've got and what any farmer can grab, you can just jump on and you can have a look at your historic weather for the last 100 years, see how the rainfall and the temperatures are comparing to the 100-year average for the last 2 or 10 years.
Yep.
You can then jump on another page which is specific to your farm, the spray mate page, so you can see what whether you should be spraying, whether it's marginal or good conditions for the next 12, 24, 48 and 7 days, this sort of thing. So which is really helpful. You can jump on to MLA's livestock sale reports or Auctions Plus sort of indicators there, as well as some Chicago Board of Trade stuff. And then finally we give some really basic Sentinel satellite imagery as well, so you can have a look at your NDVI, your water moisture index, and also your shortwave infrared. Now, I use the shortwave infrared just to see clouds, because that sort of just gives you the ability to sort of make sure that you're not misreading, particularly the NDVI one there. So those couple of bits sort of really, are the first start to, most of the things that affect a farmer's life. But if you're a corporate, we then, they can jump in and swap between, 3 or 20 different farms, see what the Optiways are doing individually on each farm. They can compare, their SIBO labs, all the different properties to see, sort of how much pasture they have across the whole aggregation. We're pulling a lot of numbers out of AgriWeb sort of thing to give, consolidated stock reports and sort of those sort of things. So yeah, there's a lot of sort of benefit depending on the number of properties and all that. And that's really the big thing for the larger corporates or number of farms, is that we can just pull everything into one page, and we do customization for a fee for farmers or corporates to build their own page just as that go-to.
Yep. For just a quick rundown, like my starred dashboards, I use Auctions Plus indicators, livestock markets, spray mate, and a dabble of Twitter on there just to keep up with what's going on. And like with the map overlays, the moisture, just sort of establishing, like especially with our pastures and everything, just to see what's going on, like what the improvement is. Dabbling in these, not really using them to have an action off the back of that, but just to see we're on the right track. That's sort of the way we've been using, and I think Spray Mate's probably our biggest and most used sort of tool through Pairtree as well, because we aren't full-blown croppers, mixed farmers, and we're just looking to improve and taking those decisions out of our hands and relying on the data that's coming through. Has that played a role as well throughout Agtech and throughout Pairtree as well? You think farmers are looking to use that?
And like we do a lot with data farming. Tim Neal, who won the Agtech Agtech Company of the Year last week or so. But that's our basic 10-meter resolution in the NDVI stuff that you're looking at. Is we're not trying to compete with Tim because he does a sort of 1.5 meter or less sort of resolution. So we can host his better images back on our platform to compare that, and then put that over the top of EM surveys, and then we can put John Deere yield data back over the top of that again, so we can actually compare and see, where either EM surveys and yield or EM surveys and crop health sort of correlate and don't correlate. So we've got that geospatial visualization approach to enable farmers to start storing a lot of their data, and that's probably the biggest thing, that if you do put the data on there, we sort of farmers can swap and change, but we'll keep all that data there available. And so if a weather station dies, we're looking at that point geospatially, so it's that, what is the weather in that paddock? And so there could have been 2 or 3 different providers over 10 years, and we just give you the rainfall that has been recorded in that paddock, regardless of the brand of the weather station.
Yeah, beautiful. And like the outcomes that you're wanting Pairtree to have for people,
Yeah.
what does a farm look like that uses Pairtree? What I suppose is the key selling points for farmers? What do you want them to be able to achieve off the back of utilising it?
Yeah, so that was where we started. That what you've got with Plus. Just firstly, if you're a technophobe and you've got no idea about tech, that's completely fine. Like, it's starting with Plus gives you that ability to just have a look at the imagery, or you get your virtual weather station, which drives sort of spray mate and things like that. But then there's complete flexibility to add a weather station, get to understand what the connectivity issues are, or add some imagery from a data farming or a CBO Labs or something like that if you're a cropper or a livestock, and it's our approach is really, to allow the flexibility of everything just coming in. That some farmers are super sort of carbon rotational farming, and so they really want to look at what pastures on hand. Older farmers maybe sort of set stocking and all that, so they're just worried about water with farm bottle or wherever that's going, sort of thing. So all of that can sort of come in on that one platform. And then, we do have a carousel function that they can have in the kitchen or the tea room or the office, of an extra screen that just goes through 5 or 6 or 10 different screens. Your starred screens could be just continually scrolling through, so you don't actually have to go into the apps. You can see the headlines of the tanks or the pastures or the rainfall going through. But when you wanted to do a deep dive, you just jump straight back into the app and sort of move stock around or add rainfall or sort of see what the long-term rainfall was or something like that.
Yeah, well, there's plenty going on, and if you want to collect that data, I suppose, but simple is key in starting out for any new
100%.
farmers coming onto the platform.
Yeah. Just start where you want. Like, it's whatever's like, start for the lowest hanging fruit for you, sort of thing. And that's what I was sort of trying to say there a minute ago. If you want really into cell grazing and you want to know, what pasture's ahead of you or whatever, then go to a sort of a pasture type thing. But we're not prescriptive in any of that sort of thing. It's a choose your own adventure type of approach that we've tried to make that provide farmers with real flexibility and what's going to benefit them. And our approach is we charge $40 a month for an integration, which is a bit over $1 a day. So if it's not going to add $1 a day value to you to jump on, to add it to Pairtree, it's quite simple. Don't worry about it. But when you get 2 or 3 things that you want to see together, then that $3 or $4 is then probably of value to start putting it on Pairtree at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you calculate that value, it sort of comes back around quite quickly for yourself. And you'll be probably calculating that a lot more with the Farms of the Future program. Talk to us about that, your role as Pairtree in it, and sort of how I'll put the areas, the regions that are involved within it. This is for New South Wales only, and will be branched out later on in time, I suppose. Talk to us about that and your role.
Yeah, so there's about 51 different providers that are available there. So the good thing is we're already working with 18 to 20 of them. And so if you look at the way we work, we just provide those, an aggregation of those providers onto our platform. And so we just, we're offering an integration approach for the Farms of the Future. So they just will be very simple sort of integrations. Everything's connected together. And then the way that we show the data, farmers can start looking at, what's happening at a paddock level for each one of those, sort of, again, come back to, what I find interesting, the livestock, Optiway and AgriWeb sort of thing, as well as weather station soil probes, tanks, water troughs. All of that sort of stuff is sort of really key for that livestock piece, but then also, a lot of goanna stuff going out on Meadows, or, sort of some of those key guys for doing sort of cotton or sort of horticultural type crops as well.
Yeah, horticulture is a huge space, especially.
Yeah.
Do you think hort has more technology than like mixed farming, livestock to cropping, or is it
Yeah.
bit even now?
Look, I think it's it's I think as much of a muchness as just a huge growth and interest growing in ag tech in general. And I think now, NBIT or CAT-M1, which is sort of cellular type sensor sort of connectivity. So they work on the phone cellular approach, but they work, because the data is very small packets generally. It's a bit like the old pager technology. It's sort of, you may not have be able to talk on voice, but you can, there's sort of it still has connection and can get a little message out, and that's the easiest way to think about that. So now that nowhere on the globe has an issue with connectivity in ag tech, and Bill Mitchell from Optiway's certainly proved that with putting units in far north Queensland through all into Uruguay and those sort of areas, sort of thing with their satellite swarm satellite technology. So like that's anywhere farmers can put devices. There is a few limitations, but at least you can get a device anywhere you need now, which is really important, and hence why I think now's the right time to start really exploring ag tech. And it's very commercial and gives you actually a bang if you choose the right services that the low hanging fruit as a farmer.
Yeah, well, it's opening up the field or even paddock so much for the farmers, and we actually got room to play around and see how it can integrate into our own farms. But
Yeah.
for yourself, Hamish, and the team, what does the future of Pairtree look like? What do you want to develop into? Who do you want to be suited for?
Yeah, so we launched at Evoke Ag in February, Pairtree Pipes, and Pairtree Pipes is really trying to streamline that process to enable farmers to opt their data into services that they want from different ag tech companies or different consultants or agribusinesses and all that. So that approach is really sort of going to be a seamless way for farmers to just have a Pairtree account and then connect through to a disease model or frost and heat stress models, or a stewardship carbon platform and all that. So we're out beta testing that at the moment with some various companies to get that started and make that easier. So yeah, certainly that's where Pairtree really wants to be, is making it easier for farmers to maximise the value that they have from the investment in the ag tech that they have.
Absolutely. And moving forward, how can someone, depending what part of Pairtree they want to sign up to, Pairtree Plus, how can we actually sign up and what's that look like?
Yeah, so there's just an orange button on our website, so they can just go to the website, pairtree.co, just .co, and Pairtree as a pair of shoes. And yeah, they can just go there, sign up for a 30-day free trial. We sort of love to just get people on and get any feedback, good, bad, or ugly. Always happy to sort of better understand what the market's looking for and all of that. So certainly encourage them to do that. And then if you're an agribusiness or a consultant or whatever, they can just reach out and email us, and we can talk about their data issues and how to speed up that sort of on-farm double entry issues and make things easier to give good value back to their clients.
Great stuff. And to round off, a few more questions to go. If you could ask the next guest on the podcast without knowing who they were, what would you ask them?
If they were a farmer, I would definitely ask them whether they've got their succession planning sorted. It's not about being greedy. It's just about understanding, and not getting caught. I know a heap of farmers that have got down the ugly end of sort of 50, 45 kids are at high school, college, at boarding school or something like that. And then suddenly, they go through succession planning and basically they're nearly too old to recover from it, sort of thing. So, it's better to have a hard conversation early and know what the lay of the land is. It's nothing about being greedy and wanting stuff. It's just about making sure that you make the right choice going forward.
Absolutely, I love that, and also it needs to be repeated pretty consistently as well to see how we can improve succession, especially with these big ambitious goals for agriculture, $100 billion target. We won't get there without farm succession successfully.
Yeah, that's it.
Compiling Pairtree, Agtech, GPT, everything. What is the one piece of farms advice you'd like people to take away from this episode? It's been pretty in depth, but I sort of want people just to take one thing away. What's that?
Yeah, the piece I would say is, if you haven't started on your ag tech journey, just go and find something. It's until you actually get in there and you understand a bit of the lingo. So work out. The Farms of the Future process was really interesting, putting farmers to make them find out what their pain points were. So if you follow that ideology, write down the things you hate for about a month, and then whether it's going to check waters or sort of working out doing pasture cuts or sort of checking the rain gauge, whatever it is. Then after you do that, go and buy that piece of tech. Generally you get a 30-day free trial anyway, sort of on some of them. So just get to know the lingo, get to know what you're doing, and then you can keep on sort of investing in other ag tech that's going to make life easier or communications within the operation easier.
Yeah, that's what it's about. And optimizing, especially when land prices are going through the roof. Bit neutral at the moment, but still more so to optimize what you're doing. But for anyone looking to contact yourself at Pairtree there or your social media, how can they do so?
Yeah, so email is just hamish@pairtree.co. Twitter's Pairtree_dash, and then LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram's all just Pairtree Intelligence. So jump in, follow us. Certainly keen to get any feedback and also get sort of any inquiries of people got the questions or sort of wanting to know more. So happily definitely do that.
Beautiful. Well, you can watch Hamish scooting around to where Agtech applies across Australia. We'll have them in the show notes anyway. So if you're keen to check what Hamish and the team are doing there, you can do so. Hamish, thanks so much for coming on. Have a good Agtech conversation. I think it's pretty refreshing especially from your position as well, because you're talking to the other Agtechs as well. I think it's pretty cool what you're doing. So congratulations and keep going.
Yeah, no, thanks, mate. I love my job. I'm lucky enough to be talking with all the leaders in the ag tech space. That there are there's particular companies out there that are every day they're waking up to just work their ass off for farmers, and gives me confidence as well to if I can do our little part and really add value to them and add value to farmers, and together. And there's a lot of collaboration happening at the moment as well. So I think long term, Australia's probably really at the forefront of ag tech and having the greatest future opportunities for getting to that $100 billion and all of that sort of thing. So thanks, mate.
It's all playing a role. This Farms Advice episode does not stop here. Come and join the conversation on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok, and even join our Facebook group. Go to farmsadvice.com.au for more on this episode and spread the hashtag FarmsAdvice to your mates. If you can leave a review on Apple or Spotify, that will let other farmers find us too. But until then, see you next Tuesday.